You know, we hear it all the time. Is grit really all it takes to escape poverty? What if the biggest obstacle isn't in our wallets, but inside our own heads? Welcome to a new English Plus magazine video. Today we're diving into the hidden burden of poverty and how it literally rewires the brain. We're going to challenge a story that, let's be honest, we all know really well. This idea that sheer willpower is the ultimate key to success. You know the one, the whole pull yourself up by your bootstraps narrative. But what if that story is missing a huge piece of the puzzle? Well, there's a powerful, invisible character in this story that we almost always ignore, the brain itself. And believe me, understanding its role, well, it changes absolutely everything. Okay, so let's get right into it. Section 1, the bootstraps myth. We're going to start by unpacking this familiar, but as we're about to see, very incomplete story. See, this isn't about blaming people for the choices they make, not at all. It's about trying to understand how the environment of poverty creates this incredible cognitive load, a constant, grinding weight that actually reshapes the very organ we use to make decisions in the first place. So the key concept here is something called cognitive bandwidth. Now, the best way to think of it is like the RAM on your computer. It's our finite capacity for complex thought. And living in poverty, that's kind of like running dozens of really complex programs on a computer that just doesn't have enough RAM. The whole system slows down, it starts to lag, and it's forced to make these tough trade-offs just to keep from crashing. And that brings us right to Section 2, poverty's hidden burden. This constant drain on our cognitive bandwidth leads directly to what's called the psychology of scarcity. And scarcity isn't just about not having enough money, it's a powerful mindset that completely captures our attention, creating this intense kind of tunnel vision. Now, what's really fascinating here is that scarcity is a double-edged sword. On one hand, you get what's called a focusing dividend. When you're facing an immediate crisis, like figuring out how to pay rent by Friday, your brain becomes laser-focused on solving that one problem. But, and this is a big but, it comes with a huge bandwidth tax. While you become an expert on today's crisis, you have way less mental capacity for, well, everything else. And get this number is just staggering. In one study, researchers simply asked low-income shoppers to think about a large, hypothetical car repair bill. Just thinking about it caused their performance on cognitive tests to drop by the equivalent of 13 IQ points. Let that sink in for a second. That's the same cognitive drop as losing an entire night of sleep. This just brilliantly illustrates that invisible burden we're talking about. It's not that people in poverty are less intelligent. It's that their intelligence is being relentlessly taxed, just by the sheer mental weight of their financial reality. Okay, this leads us right into Section 3, the brain under siege, because that constant mental tax is directly linked to chronic stress, which does way more than just affect our mood. It physically changes our brains. So let's meet the brain's CEO, the prefrontal cortex. It's right behind your forehead, and it's in charge of all our sophisticated, long-term thinking. It's the part that helps us resist impulses and plan for the future. You know, the adult in the room. And then let's meet the brain's fear center, the amygdala. This is the ancient, primitive part of our brain that's all about one thing: short-term survival. When it senses a threat, it basically screams, "Act now, think later." Now, under chronic stress, what happens is basically a neurological coup. The stress hormone cortisol floods the brain. It weakens our CEO, the prefrontal cortex, while at the same time it strengthens the fear center, the amygdala. The result? A hostile takeover. The short-term, fear-driven part of the brain seizes control from the long-term planning part. Which brings us to Section 4, the science of bad decisions. So how does this neurological takeover actually change behavior? Well, it helps us reframe what are often just harmful stereotypes. Let's take something like a high-interest payday loan. From the outside, it looks like a terrible financial decision, right? But when your brain's long-term planning CEO has been sidelined and your amygdala is screaming about the immediate crisis of feeding your kids tonight, that loan suddenly feels like the only rational choice. It's not foolishness, it's a brain in survival mode. Or what about an impulse buy? It's not always about poor financial management. I mean, just imagine the sheer mental effort of constantly telling yourself and your family no. Willpower isn't endless, it's a finite resource. That impulse purchase can actually be a symptom of decision fatigue, a completely exhausted brain just looking for a moment of relief from that relentless grind of saying no.
Which brings us to our final section, designing for bandwidths. Because if the problem is rooted in the environment, then the solution can't just be telling people to try harder. It has to be about changing the environment itself. This forces us into a fundamental shift in how we think about this. Instead of asking the old question, which is just loaded with blame, we have to start asking a much better, much more productive question. We have to focus on the system, not just the individual. So, what do the real solutions look like? Well, they focus on reducing that bandwidth tax. Things like simplifying ridiculously complex applications for aid, providing stable and predictable incomes, or even something as simple as helpful text message reminders for appointments. These aren't just about giving people resources, they're about freeing up precious mental space, giving people back the capacity to plan, to dream, and to build a better future.
Recognizing this hidden burden of poverty, it isn't about making excuses. It's about a massive shift toward finding smarter, more compassionate, and, in the end, much more effective solutions. This leaves us with a final, crucial question to think about. How can we redesign our world to finally lighten that load? And this was another magazine video from English Plus Podcast. Don't forget to check out the full article that contains a lot more details on our website, englishpluspodcast.com, for more details, including the focus on language section and the activity section. Thank you for watching, stay curious, and never stop learning. We'll see you in the next episode.